Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. Rumi, Persian Sufi poet and mystic. Go on, ask your question, Socrates said over my shoulder. Just do it. You've got every reason to. I blinked. Look, Socrates, I explained. I know you're from about 2,500 years ago, so maybe you've missed a trick or two, but these days that's not something you can just go ahead and ask. This was a good few years ago. I'd signed up for a course in practical philosophy, my introduction to the concept. I was hoping to gain some theory and practical know-how about holding philosophical conversations and clarifying my thinking. As a writer and director of stage plays, I also wanted to get a clearer handle on my own thinking during the creative process of putting a performance together. Perhaps, more to the point, I wanted to be more precise in the questions I asked my actors. So there I was, trying to get to grips with the practical side of philosophy. On the first day of the course, we broke for lunch, and I found myself sharing a table with 5 classmates, 4 women and 1 man. Before long, the conversation turned to the topic of children. We went round the table. Do you have children? Yeah, 1 son. What about you? 2 daughters, quite a handful. Everyone was asked a few follow-up questions. How old are they? Are they already at school? Do yours have an iPad yet? It was the kind of chit-chat I knew well. I was in my late 20s, and I'd already had a bunch of conversations just like it. As soon as someone says, "No, I don't have kids," there's either an awkward silence, or the Q&A quickly moves on to the next person. It never failed to surprise me. People with children love talking about having children, but it seems that we prefer to leave the stories of childless people untold. Even then, I used to think, hang on a sec, everyone has a story to tell. What makes us decide on someone else's behalf by not asking them a single question that their story doesn't need to be heard? Soon, it was my turn, and I duly said that I didn't have children. I took a breath, all set to say a bit more about myself. At the time, I taught a lot of theatre classes in schools, and I was brimming over with great stories about kids. Stories I was more than happy to share. I was also eager to hear about other people's experiences and what motivated them in life, and to share my doubts about whether or not I should have children. I mean, how do you know if it's what you really want? It seems like such a big step, a defining moment, something you really have to think about. How do you arrive at a decision like that? But before I could open my mouth, the words, "And what about you?" had hastily been directed at the next participant. Everyone switched their focus to the woman next to me, who was soon chatting enthusiastically about her 7-year-old. Everyone studiously avoided catching my eye. Apparently, my story had no place in this conversation. I found that strange. After all, we were more or less the same age, and shared at least one interest, given we had all signed up for the same course. Surely, this was an ideal opportunity for more in-depth discussion, in a setting where you needn't be hemmed in by the standard tropes and habits of conversation. A kind of indignation began bubbling up inside me. Why start a conversation about children, and then only include a select few? Why would you tacitly determine whose stories are told and whose stories are passed over? Why not let each person decide for themselves whether or not they have something to share? Once the woman beside me had said all she had to say about her little girl, the question was put to the next person, a woman in her early 40s, with playful brown curls. "No," she said. "I don't have kids." and instantly the group was all set to move on.